Hello, I'm Pedro U. Arredondo. I'm a candidate to receive a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree with a concentration in painting and drawing. I would like to start off by addressing some of the concerns about my titles, because you will notice that they are in foreign languages, they're confusing, and they're hard to read, and they create the illusion of intellect, which is only to maintain a consistency with the art terminology that I will use to describe my works, which do all the same things. These are words like chiaroscuro, juxtaposition, and trompe-l'oeil. The following are some of my design projects. Deficit Harmony is an acrylic painting on illustration board. The assignment was to arrange geometric shapes, specifically 3 triangles, 2 rectangles, and 1 circle, to create a unified composition. Contrast and visual interest are created by varying the thickness of line, juxtaposing rectilinear and curvilinear forms, and repeating light and dark values in a rhythmic manner to lead the viewer's eye. Harmony and order are maintained by evenly distributing the positive shapes on the negative space, and by maintaining the repetition of angles, such as the 45-degree angle and the 90-degree angle, and by keeping distinct boundaries in a closed value composition. Algorithm Catastrophica uses intersecting shapes to create a fractured monochromatic composition. A simple algorithm is used to ensure that no shape touches another shape of the same color. This creates alternating patterns throughout the composition, which also creates an even distribution and harmony. This conveys control and intent. A texture is used to subtly convey chance and volatility. The following slides will focus on my sculptures. Vacuo is a sculpture consisting of a series of planes repeated with slight variations to create 3D form. Movement and rhythm are generated through the gradations in size, rotation, and angle, inviting the observer to view it from all sides. It is a sculpture in the round. Repetition is evident in the planes themselves, the circular forms, and the voids they contain, creating a harmony throughout the composition. This piece demonstrates 3 types of balance: symmetrical from top to bottom, asymmetrical from side to side, and radial in the individual discs. This design introduces a theme which recurs in my works: the interpenetration of planes. Inward thinking is a construction that was partially created using the lost foam casting process, in which a styrofoam copy is covered in sand, leaving a small portion exposed, to which molten aluminum is poured. The foam copy is lost, and the aluminum copy was then suspended using metal wire. This piece emphasizes the artistic process, leaving in tool marks, wood glue, nails, and staples. The remainder of the presentation will focus on my concentration, painting and drawing. B-2 is a charcoal rendering that utilizes chiaroscuro, an Italian word which means light and dark, to eliminate line and emphasize form and space through modeling. 2-point linear perspective is used to create the composition, which has a weakness of creating visual monotony because the orthogonal lines or edges converge at only 2 points. But this is overcome by overlapping, intersecting, and interrupting those lines. A sense of implied motion is created by offsetting the verticals so they sit diagonally on the picture plane. The horizon is also offset diagonally. A sense of implied volume is created by overlapping by the cast shadows, and a spatial ambiguity is left in by the top left shape, which is hard to tell if it is distant and large or if it is close and small. Hervix pomadensis, commonly known as Snelk, utilizes that atmospheric perspective in which the greater detail is left in the foreground. The Snelk has a fuller range of values to model and create emphasis, causing it to emerge from the low contrast flat background. The technique of trompe-l'oeil is used. This technique means to deceive the eye in French. A variety of textures are created to simulate soft and hard textures. Still Life of the Inspired Artist is a watercolor painting that utilizes the techniques of wash in the blue ground, masking in the reflective highlights, glazing in the shadows, and lifting off in the lighter areas of the shadows. Movement is created in a cyclic fashion. Orgasmic Cubism is an oil painting that simulates the abstract Orphism style that was pioneered by Robert Delaunay. It utilizes high contrast by juxtaposing freehand elements with elements that are drawn using a compass and straight edge, and by utilizing complementary colors such as orange and blue, and through the value contrast of black and white. Now I would like to take some time to talk about an artistic influence, because this artist influenced the paintings which will follow. Anselm Kiefer embedded unconventional objects like plants, glass, and dirt to create thick textures in his work. He chose to sacrifice the archival quality of his works in favor of content. His intent was not to disguise, but to expose. Imputresco is a mixed media painting that treats space on 3 different levels. It has flatness by abstraction and liberal use of the flat black. It has illusion of depth through the 2-point perspective and atmospheric perspective, in which the desaturated colors were reserved for the background. And it has actual depth by including 3D objects and textures. Antiparethesis S has contrast by simulating the texture of wood in the wooden figure, and by having the actual texture of wood in the wooden frame. It has 3D ropes that are juxtaposed against the 2D plane, violating it and allowing the viewer to do the same. Memento Vivere Omicidium is an acrylic mixed media painting that utilizes a limited color palette of values of red paint, which were applied in varying degrees of thickness using staining and modeling paste. Emphasis was created on the skull by juxtaposing the darkest and lightest values, by scaling it larger than the others, and by placing it off-center according to the rule of thirds. Mortuos Deus Lux Mundi is an egg tempera on wood panel painting. First, the wooden support was constructed, then the panel was primed with casein gesso. The eggs were separated, discarding the egg whites and preserving the yolk. Dry pigments were mixed into the yolk along with water and vinegar. The paint was then applied in thin layers using hatching and cross-hatching strokes. The figure of the woman is made dominant because she runs the length of the composition. Movement and visual interest are created by the rhythm of the snake coils and the flowing hair and fabric of the figure. This invites the audience to view the entire composition along a circular path around the center void. The low saturated earth tones are juxtaposed with the intense blue in the sky and fabric. After I graduate, I plan to cut off my ear, contract syphilis, and die of the Spanish flu, just like a real artist. Thank you. That was 8:50.
How long?
8:50.
All right. I think you could, your delivery could be a little smoother, and you can cut that down a little bit. Your first slide, title slide, was meant to provide clarity for your titles, but I got confused.
Oh, this one?
Yeah. When the text started emerging, I was confused. I would either simplify that, just have it all there all at once, or just be clear on that. Because your intent there was clarity, but I wasn't clear on what you were trying to say.
Okay. So work on
Now
this.
a little bit more.
All right.
Curvex Romanese.